The Shop 3 Sheep Eater. Written and read by W.P. Thrift, who can be contacted at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. And cover art created by JD, contactable at Radix_L on Twitter. Chapter 10, Every Day I'm Chickenin', Part 2. Supper time was less tense these days since Haley had started joining everyone. Before, when she was still wrapping up her chores or just hiding in the barn, the tensions between Ray and Cassidy always ran hot, especially when Lantis was still borderline comatose at every meal. Lantis didn't know it, but him helping with the chores didn't just give Haley time to come eat with everyone. It also gave her a reason to want to come eat with everyone. Since their parents passed, Haley and Cassidy had grown pretty far apart. They divided up the chores in such a way that neither of them ever saw much of each other for nearly the entire day. But if they did it any other way, they'd never be able to get everything done in time. Hanging out with Lantis, even if he did seem crazy to her, had given her a bond with someone living here unlike any she had had in a long time. And in turn, having Haley around had softened Cassidy up to the point in which Ray could not easily provoke her anymore, as Cassidy had stopped instigating things herself. A sort of quiet truce had settled down between them, however tentative it might be.
So that's when I answered, "What is Bloody Sunday?" And you know what the man on the TV said?
Mr. March was chatting.
"The same thing."
Mrs. March humored him.
"That's right. Oh, I'm so good at that game show. I really should try and be a contestant on it someday."
Mr. March could always dream. Lantis ate his baked potato and side of cream corn and snap beans at a reasonable pace tonight. After enough time had passed, he started getting used to having regular, healthy meals, so that he finally ceased devouring them like a ravenous animal. He sipped on his sweet tea, the syrupiness of it making him feel ill. The healthier he got, the more impactful things like sugars, salts, and oils became on him. Speaking of healthy, he actually lived here for more than a month before he realized that Cassidy was a vegetarian, and since she was the cook, nobody was served any meats. They could always drive into town if they were desperate, but she did a good enough job of keeping everyone well fed that they never felt the need to do so. Ray had pretended like it was a big deal for a while, but had stopped doing so the first night Haley had joined them at the table. Cassidy, their chef and waiter, sat down at the table last, as always. Her well-calloused fingers gripped the fine silverware that had been in her family for generations. It disgusted her to think that Ray used the same utensils, even if most of Ray's family had gotten along well with Cassidy's. But that was just one more thing to put behind her. At least Ray wasn't yapping right now, she thought. But, going back to unhealthy things Lantis consumed, he had to bring up. "So, tired old man," he said to Mr. March. Cassidy nearly did a spit take with the first bite of cream corn she went to eat. She blushed and pretended like she was just coughing.
"You okay?"
Haley asked her.
Sounds like somebody's being surpassed by their student,"
Mrs. March teased.
"Oh, now that's nonsense,"
Mr. March protested. "But all this week you've given up and gone back inside early," Lantis pointed out. "So that means I win, right? I can have my smokes back, old man."
"Now hold on a darn minute. You smoke?"
Cassidy was surprised. "Everyone who's cool smokes," Ray taunted her.
"Now forget it."
Mr. March was putting his foot down on this one.
"It'll be 100 years before you surpass me. You've just been so sluggish up till now that you started to make me soft."
Clearly, this was getting under his skin, if he was finally, at long last, talking down to Lantis's abilities. "So, sparring match, then?" Lantis suggested. "You've been reluctant to do any CQC lately. I've had to spar with your wife."
"Yeah? And how did that go?"
Mr. March shot back. Lantis's expression suddenly dropped, and he glanced down at his plate, poking at it with his fork. She's, she's evil, Lantis muttered.
Yeah, I thought so,
Mr. March said, triumphantly.
If you can take her in a fight, then you can have your death sticks back. Otherwise, forget it. I won't see you train so hard just to backtrack because you want to puff on these vile things.
Oh, no, come on, Mr. March. Haley came to Lantis's defense. Uncle Lantis really seems to like them. It was so subtle that Cassidy nearly missed it, and then when it hit her, she nearly choked on her cream corn, yet again. You sure you're all right, sis? Haley turned back to her big sister. Uncle Lantis, huh? Cassidy asked. Yeah? Haley asked back, not getting it. Cassidy let it drop, but she found herself staring at Lantis across the table a lot tonight after that. Haley had come to open up to him so much, so quickly, and now she was starting to see him as a regular member of the family. That touched her heart like no one would have ever believed. Cassidy may not get to see her sister that much anymore, and Haley may have felt like they were drifting apart, but Cassidy couldn't have disagreed more with that sentiment. Haley was all she had left in this world, and so family, what very little family she had left, meant more to her than anything else possibly could. If Lantis was lifting her spirits again after all this time, then she would never be able to thank him enough. Cassidy found herself sneaking around her own house later that night after she had glanced out the window and spotted Lantis sitting on the porch down below. She was just barely able to notice him, only because his legs were so stretched out could she see those training boots from her window. She hadn't been able to sleep despite putting in a full, hard day of work. Normally, that had always knocked her right out since she was little. But tonight, she found herself completely restless. She couldn't stop thinking about him, so when she had glimpsed him being outside, she had to pinch herself to make sure she hadn't fallen into a dream. Dream about him. Cassidy assumed, with him putting in a full day of the March's workout, followed by a full day's hard work around the farm, he would be out like a light. But nope, this was real. She had made only one slight detour on her way out of the house, which was by the laundry room, where she had found Lantis's cigarettes in Mr. March's pockets while doing everyone's laundry the other day. She had put them back where she had put the cigs when she first found them in Lantis's pocket, but apparently nobody had noticed. Not wanting Mr. March to find out he had snuck one, she only took one out of the pack, plus grabbed the lighter. She turned the corner into the kitchen. Walking across it, the large archway leading into the living room to the left of the front door flickered blue lights across the kitchen just before she stepped in front of it. Someone was awake, Cassidy realized. Darn it! Of course someone would have to be down here watching TV. Who is it? She just hoped it wouldn't be Mr. March, but it slipped her mind that who was down there could be much worse. Glancing down around the corner to see who was there, hoping not to be seen, a flash of blue hair sped her heart up. And then Ray, sitting on the couch watching the TV on mute with subtitles on, glanced back towards her immediately. They locked eyes. Cassidy ducked back around the corner and tried to convince herself that Ray didn't see her with how dark the kitchen is compared to how bright the TV was. Then Ray rounded the corner to see her. "So what brings you in here in the wee hours of the morning?" Ray asked.
None of your darn business. It's my house if you haven't forgotten,
Cassidy shot back. How could I? You only remind me of that every single day. You think not being wanted even phases me at this point? Ray said. Cassidy scoffed.
You know, I'm getting pretty sick of you giving your parents so much grief. Every time they even try to talk to you, you just walk off on them. I've seen you. You haven't even tried to reconnect with them. Why are you even here?
That's none of your darn business, Ray mocked. Why the fuck do you even care about how I treat these assholes anyway? They're the ones that took off on me and never came back.
I wish that my parents had only left.
Cassidy glared. If Ray wanted to play the sympathy game, then she was ready to deal herself in. If I could just drive down to someone's house and see them again, I would be over the moon. Ray glanced over at the door, then back to Cassidy. She knew this wasn't a game she could win. But she knew something that Cassidy didn't know that she knew. So it looks like you were headed to the door, Ray noted. Getting some fresh air? Or maybe you're trying to see someone. Cassidy caught on. Of course Ray had seen Lanta stepping outside if she was just sitting here watching TV at all hours of the night. What do you care about that? What do you want with Lantis? Ray's tone came off, more threatening this time, enough so that it caught Cassidy off guard. Listen here, I'm the one that's been taking care of him while your nutty parents did everything in their power to kill that poor boy. I don't know why you suddenly care about what I'm doing with him, but drop it. I've shown him more support and attention than your parents ever showed you. Cassidy just had to drive that nail in. Yes, they had played their sympathy cards, and Ray had folded. But now Cassidy was more than ready to spit Ray's own cards back in her face. And yet, both of them had to keep their voices down, as many people were trying to sleep. And Lantis may also hear them from just outside. Ray's nostrils flared. She had a longer game in mind, but she had to set Cassidy up for the fall first. I've been taking care of him for the past 2 months. I know how to control my parents, how to keep them from killing him. You just waited until they were done and cleaned up the mess. It's disgusting how you just stood there and let them twist him apart. I opened doors for him when he was too weak to turn the knob. I fed him when he could barely open his mouth. His jaw was so swollen. I also... Cassidy realized she wasn't making a good case for herself here. How did Ray know how bad of shape he was in, anyway? Did Lantis tell her? No. Or maybe she had spoken with her parents some, but only to talk about Cassidy with them? After a long, hot, sweaty day, I took him inside and gave him a slow, sensual sponge bath, Ray said nonchalantly, reaching out her hands towards Cassidy's shoulders and miming a massaging gesture just above them. Cassidy recoiled. No, you didn't! She shouted entirely too loud, flinching afterwards when she realized everyone in the household probably heard that. What's it to you if I did or didn't? Ray shrugged. He's Uncle Lantis, remember? Wouldn't that make it incest if you two did hook up? Oh, wait, you're just a simple southern girl from the dirty South. I guess that would be normal for you. Cassidy was baring teeth now. She would have attacked Ray, but a fight would definitely wake everyone up. She just kept telling herself that that was the reason she didn't grab her by her blue hair and try to smash her face into the table, right here and now. She had to hold on to something, or that's exactly what she would be doing next. Lost for words? Ray asked after an extended silence. Okay, fine then. He's all yours, Cassie. Ray walked off, back up the stairs, leaving Cassidy to feel flustered and out of place. She had to calm herself down. She realized Ray had gotten so deep under her skin that now she was likely to make herself look like a fool in front of Lantis if she spoke to him. No, I gotta try anyway, Cassidy told herself. If I walk off now, she'll have won. Approaching the door again with significantly less confidence now, she stepped out onto the porch. Lantis glanced back to see who it was, then went back to staring out towards the stars. Cassidy reluctantly stepped forward, then slowly took a seat beside him. She looked up at the sky. Not a single cloud out tonight. With the porch lights off, all the heavens were open up to them to peer through. Stars sure are pretty tonight, Cassidy said, making small talk. Lantis pointed straight up. The ones you see blinking colors, like that blue and red one. Those are actually 2 stars circling each other. Huh, is that so? No idea. I've never been out there. But Mr. Roosty told me that once, he replied. That was a name she hadn't heard before. In fact, as odd as it was, she decided that she had simply misheard him. Since moving into the trailer park with Bowman, I haven't been able to see the stars like I could growing up. Even then, I usually had to hide among the trees at night, or in a cave during winter. I couldn't get out much to see them. But They still make me feel very nostalgic for back then, Lantis said. Cassidy wasn't sure what to say, though, now that he mentioned it, she probably had always taken having a clear view of the sky for granted. All the light pollution in town, or even in a trailer park, probably did blot out the stars a good deal. So you recognize any constellations? There weren't too many terms related to the stars that she knew, but she was reaching here just to try and make the conversation last. Only Orion, Lantis replied. I used to think that I knew which one was the Big Dipper, but then someone told me that it was actually the Little Dipper. Or maybe I have that backwards. They explained the difference, but I forgot what it was. Cassidy did know Orion, too. The 3 stars that dotted his belt gave it away. Just sitting here was making her feel somewhat panicked. Lantis seemed to be at peace with just saying nothing, but it made her feel uneasy. It was just too awkward being somewhere without any real purpose. That was probably coming from her upbringing. On the farm, you're either working, eating, or sleeping. There really wasn't time to just sit around and stare up at the stars. Well, maybe there was when she was younger. Anyway, Cassidy said finally, I brought you this. I snuck it out for you, so don't you go telling no one about it, 'kay? Huh? Huh. Lantis glanced over. He saw the cigarette and lighter she fetched him from her pocket, and his jaw slacked and eyes popped open. Oh my God, I love you! Lantis cried out with a suddenness that shocked her. He squeezed her around the neck in a quick hug. This caused Cassidy to immediately panic. She froze up and hesitated, and was unable to return the hug until he was already backing away from her. She lifted her hands, but too slowly. She awkwardly paused, and then pretended like she was only reaching out her hands to offer him the cigarette, which he quickly took and jumped up before giving a cautious glance around. I'm gonna run behind the barn or something to smoke this. I don't want the old man spotting me again, Lantis told her. Right, of course, Cassidy said. Well, you have fun. I'll see you in the morning, you hear? He nodded, then turned to run off. Cassidy stood up and found herself looking at the stars again for another long moment, during which time she missed the fact that Ray had been watching them from just around the corner, having come back down the stairs and then exited from the back entrance. Even Lantis missed seeing Ray in his hurry to get to the barn. Cassidy went back inside, while Ray just rolled her eyes and flicked Cassidy the bird while turning to walk off after Lantis. Behind the barn, he just flicked on his cigarette lighter, the fire killing his night vision for a moment, when a hand from out of the darkness reached out and snatched the cigarette from his mouth. I will fight you for it, old man! Lantis barked. Then he realized who it was. Wait, Dashie? He had never stopped calling her that, and eventually she just stopped threatening him when he did it. These will kill you, you know, Ray told him. Lantis was confused by this. But you said at the table that cool people smoke. I'm cool. I am. Give me a chance to prove it. I was just saying that to piss off my dad, Ray replied. I just don't want to see you smoking, okay? Oh my God! Lantis threw his hands up. So your whole family's like this, then? Hey, chill out, Ray said. It's not that big of a deal. You haven't been smoking in months. I know you're not suffering any withdrawals by this point. Says someone who's clearly never smoked. Damn it, Ray, give it back! Lantis pressed her name, and that made her almost flinch. She had finally gotten used to the pet name he had thrust upon her, Dashie, and here he was, getting under her skin again, somehow, by taking it back the second he was mad about something. She crushed the cigarette in her hand and let the tobacco rain to the ground. Have fun smoking that, Ray said, then turned to walk off. God damn it! Lantis shouted. Fuck you too, then! She did flinch at that. But, moreover, suddenly her heart sank. A thought occurred to her on the way back to the house. She had somehow successfully burned every single bridge in her life up to this point. Everyone in this house hated her now, intentionally or otherwise. She couldn't even go back to work at this point without her boss freaking out on her and demanding to know where she had been. She had only asked for a month off, which he was reluctant enough to grant her even that. Maybe she should just leave, she considered. Try to put her life back home, back together. What very little of it there was. She had done nothing but snub her parents, deliberately antagonize the host, and now, with Lantis furious at her, it didn't feel like a soul in the world was on her side. Not even herself. She could not have been more pissed at herself right at that moment, even if she had tried. Fuck you, Ray, Ray thought. You done fucked up every goddamn thing you possibly could. Good job, you fucking loser. That concludes Chapter 10 of Sheep Eater. Tune in every Tuesday for new chapters, and please subscribe to be notified the moment they're released. If you would like to reach me, you can do so at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. That's LANTISARMSTRONG. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again for next week's chapter, The Warrior King.